What's up, everybody? This is Raphael Garcia back for the July 6th edition of the MMA Ratings Podcast. This is a good one today because not only do we have a lot of stuff going on this week, but MMA Ratings would like to welcome a new host to this show. I'm going to give an introduction. I'm going to let him introduce himself, so I'm going to go ahead and throw it to the new co-host for the MMA Ratings Podcast.
Guys, this is Schwan Humes. You might know me as the Black Jordan Breen, and I'm co-hosting the MMA Ratings Podcast with my man Raphael Garcia.
Yes, it's definitely it's good to have you here, man. I appreciate you taking time out to sit down and talk with us. I know we're going to have some great conversations about the show, and I've seen some of the stuff that you talked about in the past. I'm familiar with some of the things you talk about within MMA and sports as a whole. So it's definitely a benefit for us to get you on with us this week and going forward.
Well, I appreciate that. Like I said, I'm honored that you invited me to be on the show. I just love any opportunity I can to talk about combat sports, MMA in particular. And, I appreciate the work you've done. I listened to your show. Actually, I think you do a great job with your site and your show. So appreciate you letting me be a part of it.
Well, I appreciate that too, man. And, you just said it. We have a lot going on when it comes to MMA. So let's just go ahead and jump right into it. We are on the cusp of the first card for International Fight Week. We have UFC Fight Night 90 tomorrow night, which has a big main event where Eddie Alvarez is challenging Raphael dos Anjos for the lightweight title. But before we go into that, let's just talk about International Fight Week as a whole. There's a lot of things going on, a lot of big fights. I believe 5 title fights are going to occur between tomorrow and Saturday night. So looking at all 3 cards, why don't you tell me, what do you think is the biggest fight that this weekend?
The biggest fight, one as far as like casual fans, hardcore fans, and probably overall, I guess appeal would probably be the Jones-Cormier fight. Because, that fight has so much history. It's been built up. It's been put off. So you have to imagine that's going to be the fight that's really going to get the ratings and really has the most at stake. If Cormier beats Jones, he essentially becomes the best fighters of all time. He becomes the man at light heavyweight, which Jones has been for the past, I don't know how many years. And if Jones beats Cormier, he's essentially cleaned out the division, except for Anthony Johnson, who was defeated decisively by Cormier. So it has a big impact on the division. As far as I'm concerned, that would probably be the biggest one.
Okay, I can definitely ride with that choice there. There's so many different fights going on this weekend that I'm gonna go outside the box. I'm not gonna pick anything off of UFC 200, but I think the fight that's going down tomorrow between Alvarez and dos Anjos is one that's certainly flying under the radar. It's a huge fight because there's so much on the line. Obviously, dos Anjos is, you had that, but I think for Alvarez himself, this is moment that he spent a year fighting against Bellator. He fought against them in court to try to get this opportunity, and now it didn't start off so well against Donald Cerrone, and now he's finally at that point where he's challenging for a title. He will become the first man to hold the belt in Bellator and the UFC if he can get a win. Some of the last guys he's defeated, he would have become the UFC champion, been a former Bellator champion, defeated a Strikeforce champion in Gilbert Melendez, and defeated a former and WEC champion in Anthony Pettis. So he has a chance at history. So I think that's a fight that I'm certainly looking forward to, probably the most out of the whole weekend.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that fight too as well, mainly because on paper, a lot of people aren't giving Alvarez much of a chance. And I tend to believe a lot of people, given his last couple fights, I can't say he's been particularly impressive. He's been very smart and disciplined, and he's done what he takes to win. And I understand why people, as a result, don't think he's going to have a chance against Raphael dos Anjos. But there's actually a lot of things that when Eddie Alvarez is on point, that he could do that could actually allow him to win that fight. It's just a matter of whether he'll do it consistently enough for 5 rounds to get the win. I mean, he's one of the best. He's got some of the best footwork in boxing in MMA. The only problem is he often gets away from it once he gets, hit with a real good shot, gets dropped. Instead of going back to the game plan, he starts coming out swinging, coming out gunning. And if he does that in this fight, that increases RDA's chances of winning by quite a bit. So a lot of people aren't. I like the fight because I appreciate fights. I watch fights. Like, I really watch them backwards, forwards, break down every part of it. But I can see why a lot of people aren't very excited about the fight. And Dos Anjos isn't a draw either. So while it's a very good fight, and I'm going to be excited for it, I don't know that it's the kind of fight that attention of the masses.
Yeah, I think it's certainly a compelling fight, but as you said, it doesn't really it may not get the attention of everybody watching. So I'm actually going to use that to segue into something else. What do you think is the fight?
Go ahead.
This weekend is over. Everyone's going to be talking about what fight is going to potentially steal the whole weekend. Like, a lot of highlights that people will be asking, oh, did you see this fight? Or they should go back and watch at a later date.
I'm actually kind of biased about this. It's really between the two women's fights, to be honest with me. And I actually have to go in between this subject and the last one. In actuality, I should have said that I'm looking forward to the Miesha Tate Amanda Nunez fight the most, because it just as a side note to the fans and anybody who's listening who just happens in on the show, everybody on Twitter knows, and almost anybody who's in the MMA community, even including some fighters and coaches and analysts, like, everybody knows I have this almost 4 or 5 year streak where I've guessed each and every one of Miesha Tate's fights correctly. Not just how it's going to end, but exactly how the fight's going to go, who's going to win, every direction it's going to go, like, completely. For the past 4 or 5 years, I have not got a fight wrong, wins and losses. So if she wins this next fight, my streak continues, and I still remain the foremost source of information on Miesha Tate and her fight camps and her fight strategy. So for personal reasons, I have to say that fight. But I also think it's a really good. I also think it's a really good matchup, actually. And if Miesha Tate beats Amanda Nunez, and she does it in impressive fashion, even if it's a decision, that sets the table for that Ronda Rousey rematch. And I don't know if Ronda's coming back, but the UFC would love to have that big time third fight. This time Miesha's in the driver's seat, Ronda's coming for the belt fight. That breaks all sorts of records. That sets up all sorts of storylines moving forward. Even if they have to settle for a home fight, that's still a fight that sells tickets and moves units, because everybody else will think if she beats her, then she gets Ronda. So I think that might be the fight that really might kind of have that breakout star and that breakout moment. Because Miesha Tate's one of the few female fighters with a fan base. So if she comes out with a win, her fan base gets even stronger, more people go over to it, and it sets up that storyline moving forward.
So let me ask you this then. Did you see Tate's comments about taking some time off after this fight? Do you think she does that? And if so, are we even further away from that rematch with Rousey? Because, I mean, personally, I don't think I wouldn't be surprised if Rousey comes back, or does not come back, excuse me. I just think that there are too many opportunities for her outside of the cage, and I said the same thing back when her and Tate fought the second time. I just had a feeling that if she lost that fight, or when she does lose her first at that point in time, I felt like she was going to walk away from the sport, just like Gina Carano, because she was getting some huge opportunities there that allowed her to continue to build herself up as a brand and lead to more opportunities without having to get into the cage and deal with this dangerous sport. So I think we should begin to bantamweight division without her. And if if Tate decides, if she does win and she decides to take some time off, I think the women's bantamweight division gets even more interesting, because, as you mentioned, also fighting on Saturday, and Pena could become, the next contender, because they also come with backstories that are interesting surrounding Tate as well. Obviously, Zingano has that previous victory over Tate, and for Pena, she was on Miesha Tate's team during the Ultimate Fighter. So I think there's a lot of opportunity there for this division to really get some new life and some new direction after Saturday.
Yeah, well, I can agree with that. The thing with first I have to quickly address the Ronda thing. Due to the newness of the division and Ronda's athletic skills and her, in particular, as it pertains to judo, her ability to transition from striking to grappling, to judo to grappling to submission, that's really what gave her that edge. That's really what allowed her to do the things. I said this on Twitter. Anybody who's followed me on Twitter or been a fan of me on Twitter, and I'm going to sound like I'm being harsh to her, and I'm not. I'm actually a fan of hers, and I'm a fan of her coach. But the fact of the matter is, Ronda got behind a lot of athleticism, a lot of unsupported hype, and a very limited skill set. Like, it's just very limited. Everybody can keep telling me about her judo. That's great, and it shows in her transitions. But her striking was based on her getting to a clinch, throwing you, and submitting. Her grappling was essentially her throwing you and submitting you. You never saw Ronda do much guard work. You never really saw her do any other submission. She just kept doing what worked, and it allowed her to create a star and create an image that she was better than she was, which opened up these opportunities. And like I said, anybody who follows me on Twitter knew the minute they called that home fight, I predicted Ronda was going to get beat up and outschooled and outclassed, and nobody believed me. I had people sending me messages saying I'm an idiot. But I know what I'm seeing. I know what I'm talking about. Like, I actually work with coaches and fighters, so I know what I'm talking about. And I knew when she lost, the whole train was going to go off the rails. And in the case of Miesha Tate, to me, when I hear her say that she's going to take time off, my theory isn't that she necessarily wants to take time off. She's taking time off for people either get their star potential up so they can make her money, or that she's taking time off because she's trying to see if she can force the UFC to get Rousey back in the octagon. Because if Miesha Tate has been the second biggest star in the bantamweight division, and she's the only person in there with a real history in MMA. She's established. Like, everybody else has been fighting for like 3 or 4 years. She's been fighting forever. So she's not going to want to take another tough. She was complaining about it before. I had to fight the 4th ranked, 5th ranked, 3rd ranked, 2nd ranked girl, and I didn't even get a title shot. And she doesn't want to have to fight another tough girl for medium pay. She's complained about pay before. She wants more money. She wants more of a push. She wants to have opportunities created for her moving forward. And the UFC hasn't done her any favors. They went into the Ronda Rousey business. They don't really care about the bantamweight division. It's a Rousey division, and when Rousey lost, they really stopped caring. They only cared about Holly Holm for a Ronda Rousey rematch. They only want Miesha Tate hoping for a Ronda Rousey rematch. So I'm thinking she's doing it for money, and because she doesn't want to face yet another top contender, for nothing, and to be treated as a stepchild, which is how the UFC has treated her from the day she came over for Strikeforce. They've been very dismissive of her record and her accomplishments and her as a fighter until she got the belt. Now she's really great, she's really gritty. You didn't hear any of that stuff when she was losing to Ronda. You didn't hear any of that stuff, and I think that's the reason behind it.
Yeah, that's definitely an interesting way looking into it. I'm actually wondering if Rousey's even going to be there, because someone brought up a question earlier, with Travis Brown fighting, if she'll be there to support him. So I'm hoping she is. I doubt it. I'm sure she probably has something else to go to or something else to be involved in, or she probably won't even want to be in that situation. But it would be quite the situation to see if she was there on Saturday. So
it get a lot of speculation. It would get a lot of attention if she was.
It surely would. So let's look at the fight card for tomorrow, and let's talk some further analysis and some further picks. So we already talked about the main event between Alvarez and Dos Anjos. I'm not sure, but who are you picking in that fight?
Man, that is really rough, because I want to say Alvarez so bad because I know he's got the skill set and he's got the experience, and I physically think outside of his durability, he has the physical skills. He has enough left to beat Dos Anjos. He'd have to do something I've never seen him do, which is consistently be defensive, sharp on defense, sharp on footwork, and not get into firefights. And I just don't know that he can do that for 5 rounds. So it's like, I'm just gonna go crazy. I'm just gonna show support for the veteran. I'm just gonna go with Alvarez. I think he has legitimate paths to go if he works the footwork, works the angles, mixes his punches in, sets up his takedowns, and uses those as a line of defense for RDA's pressure. And if he can keep him out in the open cage, he's not very dynamic. He's not very explosive. You can kind of control him. You can kind of feint him. You can get out of the way. You can counter him. If he can do those things, I'm going to say Alvarez is going to win it, because this is his last shot. He's not getting another title shot after this. This is it. He doesn't have another 5-6 years in the division, much less the sport, in my opinion. So this is like a must-win for him, and I think he's going to pull it out. I'm gonna go all in and say that he's going to win this.
I'm actually leaning towards Alvarez too. I think it's going to be an ugly fight if he's going to win it. It's just like that's just the way he wins. When the fights get down, they get dirty, people are cut up, bloody. I think that's just what he's going to have to go down to pull out this victory. I definitely agree with you. I think he's taken a lot of damage over the last since that first Michael Chandler fight. He's certainly taken. I agree with you that he may be on the tail end of his career, but I do think he can pull out with a good mix of and wrestling to control. Dos Anjos is often talked about. Yes, he is a jiu-jitsu black belt, but he hasn't submitted anybody since Terry Edom. So I think that Dos Anjos Alvarez has the ability to hold him down if they do get into a position of scrambles on the mat. What do you think about Derek Lewis and Roy Nelson? Who are you picking in?
I'm actually going to go with Nelson. I know he's not as good an athlete. I know he's not as young. I know his chin isn't what it used to be. But the fact of the matter is Derek Lewis hasn't really beaten anybody particularly good. I mean, he beat Gabriel Gonzaga, but when's the last time he's gone past a round and been effective? Like never in his entire career. He's a good fighter, but he's never been effective past the first round. And he was even more desperate when he fought Lewis. And in Lewis's losses, he can be bullied. When he pushes and guys push back, he's not exactly great. And Matt Mitrione caught him. The first shot he hit, and Mitrione doesn't hit like Nelson. Nelson's not going to be afraid to exchange. Nelson wasn't afraid to exchange with Mark Hunt, with Werdum, with anybody. And I think he's got as much power as Lewis. I think he's got a better chin than Lewis. And I think he's got a better all-around skill set. Like, people forget, Roy Nelson can grapple and he can wrestle. He can mix it up. He can bang out on the feet if he wants to, but he's done himself a disservice and shortened his career by choosing to get into all-out brawls when he has the physical skills to take people down, break up that rhythm on the feet, and set up some of his power shots. He's just been fighting kind of stupid. He's just been leaning on that chin and that power to keep, to get those kind of wins. But he's capable of a full-round MMA game. So if the same Roy Nelson that fought Josh Barnett in Japan comes out, I expect him to run over Lewis. I don't think Lewis can take Nelson's best shot. I'm pretty sure Nelson can take a couple of his, but I don't think Lewis can take Nelson's power clean. I don't think he can take a couple clean shots from Nelson. I haven't seen it. I just haven't seen him taking clean, hard power shots and walk through them. I've seen Nelson do it, and I think he can still do it. I think he wins.
Okay, that's definitely I can understand where you're coming from with that analysis there. I'm not totally saying that Nelson can take a shot from Mark Hunt. Did put him to sleep, right? Like he did not. Didn't he get knocked out by Mark Hunt?
Yep. Walk away knockout. That was bad.
Like he definitely got clipped by Mark Hunt and got put down there. So I can see Nelson winning this fight, but I think he just has to wear Lewis down. Of course, Lewis is going to try to blow him up in the first 5 minutes. But as you said, outside of that, he gets very sluggish. He slows down. He doesn't stop. He definitely slows down big time. So if Nelson can get outside the first 3 to 4 minutes, I think that he can begin either mix up his striking or just begin to take this fight down to the ground and kind of control him, kind of the way he did Kimbo Slice back on The Ultimate Fighter years ago. He could do that theoretically in this fight here too as well. So he definitely has that opportunity. So I'm gonna rock with your pick for Nelson there too.
Yeah, he's got to fight a smart fight though. He can't do the old Roy Nelson. I'm gonna walk through him. He's gonna have to use the full array of skills. If he's not gonna do that, it's not gonna work. But if he does the full array of skills, the clinching, the knees, the takedowns, throw some kicks in there, he can win it. But if he fights like Roy Nelson from 3 years ago, whose chin hadn't been dented, it's going to be short. So he has to be. I expect him to fight like a veteran. If he doesn't, then I'm going to have a problem with my decision
tomorrow. Or the day after. So yeah, I'm definitely with you on that. What about the fight between Alan Jouban and Bilal Mohammed? These guys, what do you see going into this fight for these two?
I don't know much about the other guy, to be honest. And Jawayne, I probably just go with him because I'm more familiar. But even though he's been somewhat inconsistent, in my opinion, he's got more his physical skills. He hasn't gotten the most out of his physical skills, and he has those spots where he can get outworked by lesser talents and just plain, beat up by guys who seem to want it a little bit more. So I guess I'd go with him just because I'm more familiar with him. Other than that, I don't have a legitimate reason for going with him over this guy, excuse me.
Same boat there too as well. I've seen some images of get ready for this fight, but I'm not too familiar with him either. But two fighters I am familiar with, Mitch Clark and Joe Duffy. I'm very interested in seeing this fight because he came with, I don't want to say he came with a lot of hype because it was definitely earned, obviously, with the Conor McGregor win from years ago. But he looked very good when he first stepped into the octagon. Then that Dustin Poirier fight happened, and everybody kind of fell silent on him. So I'm interested to see against Duffy here. I expect him to get the win. I think he's just much more versatile of a fighter than Clark. But the way he looks is going to set the tone for what happens to him next after Thursday.
Yeah, I was really a big Duffy fan coming in, and I still am. He's got his boxing. The thing that separates him is he has legitimate, he knows how to box, and I don't mean throw punches. I mean get in position, put his hands in the right places, set up his shots, punch from different angles, move at angles, circle out, angle in, angle out, pivot. He's got the full array. I mean, he's as close to being as we got for world-class boxing in MMA, where the boxing it's not terrible, it's just not very good. And I think that's a fair thing to say. They're not boxers. So I actually picked him over Poirier because I thought Poirier would have the same problems with his defense and he would refuse to use his wrestling as he's been known to do throughout the large majority of his career. But I had a friend in ATT who told me that he was fighting smarter and fighting better, and he was going to use the full skills, and he was going to put it on him, and that's what happened. I don't think Mitch Clark has Poirier's athleticism. I know he doesn't have his power on the feet. I know he doesn't have his power punching on the ground. I know he doesn't have his chin, and I know he doesn't have his physical strength and just aggression. And Mitch Clark is too often willing to work from the bottom, to hit a counter, to hit a sweep, or to work for a submission. I mean, he'll literally concede top position and let you get on top and work him. And I don't think that works against Duffy. Duffy hits too hard. Duffy's a real athletic talent, and he's kind of big for the weight class, if I remember correctly. So I don't think Mitch Clark has the skills to win this. He always could. There's some chance he could win it, but I don't know anything on paper. Nothing I've seen says that Mitch Clark, the same Mitch Clark who got outstruck by Michael Chiesa on the feet, wins this versus Joe Duffy. I mean, Joe Duffy can't wrestle, but Mitch Clark isn't a great dominant wrestler either. He's a grappler, and Joe Duffy is probably one of the better grapplers in the division. As far as guys with his skill set, he's probably one of the better grapplers in the division. So I don't see how Mitch Clark wins this, to be honest. It's Joe Duffy's fight to lose.
I can definitely agree with you on that for sure. So, there's one other purchase fight on UFC Fight Night that I'm interested in seeing, and that's definitely Gilbert Burns, just because he has that vast grappling background. What he does, I'm not even going to try to say that guy's name, but he has a fight. Now, other than that, I'm not really interested in too many of these other fights outside of the main event. So we're going to move forward and talk about during the week. So, 23 finale. This main event is something I'm certainly looking forward to. I'm looking forward to seeing Joanna Jay and Claudia Gadelha get this rematch going, because I talk about how pre-fight hype is just that these two fighters aren't really that interested, that don't really have that much hatred stored up as a claim that they do, but these two individuals don't like each other, and the way they've been acting this fight has been watched. I definitely think that these two are the best women in the whole division, so I'm excited to see them fight again. Which in a fight that I think, after all said and done this weekend, it could be the best fight of the whole weekend.
Yeah, I like the realness of their rivalry. Actually, the only other time I've actually really believed that the coaches would have fought each other because they didn't like each other would have been when Rousey and Miesha Tate were on Tough, because you could tell they just couldn't stand each other. Like they could that could have blown up at any moment. And this is actually very similar to that in that instance. My whole question is kind of like, who's grown the most? Like, I'm a fan of both girls, but my big concern for Joanna is she's had kind of two made-to-order fights for her in the last couple of them. You know, Letourneau, a big physical girl, but not a very defensively sharp fighter, not the greatest counter fighter. The person who has length and some power gives it up to get into brawls and to get into physical, pressure-filled fights. And that's tailor-made for someone like Joanna with her striking skill set, her hand speed, her footwork, and her power, which is legit. It's a little overrated, but it's still very good, especially with somebody who's going to come in on you the whole time. And then facing Jessica Pena, who's a good grappler, but can't wrestle worth a damn, and has the same problem as Joanna, is she doesn't stick with her jab, and her defense is just so faulty. And she's at the wrong weight class. So Joanna had two people who really didn't have a good chance at beating her. One had no chance at all, and the other one had a chance of making it competitive, best case scenario. And Claudia, her striking's gotten better. She's got some versatile, fairly balanced striking. She's got comparable athleticism. She hits hard. She's got a good chin, good recover of. I can't even think of the word. She recovers very well, and she's got good enough takedowns. So I'm kind of questioning who's been the person who's improved the most, and that's where my questions about the fight go into it. Joanna hasn't been forced. I don't know if she's been improving on her own. She hasn't been forced to in the fights. None of the girls have been able to put her in a position where she's had to show a plan B or an alternate version of her plan A. And Claudia, as good as she is, she still has issues with her gas tank, and that's my concern for her. As good as she is she going to fade? Is she going to get tired? Is she going to lose that explosiveness? So the fight actually is very interesting for me because I don't know what either's going to bring. I know what both people have to do to win the fight, but I don't know that either one of them is capable of doing it. You know, if that makes any sense to you.
It does. The first fight was a 3-round fight, right? It was only 3 rounds, I believe.
Yes.
And I'm interested to seeing.
Yes.
It's like in round 4 and 5 if it goes that long, because as we've said, both of these individuals do tend to slow down a little bit. I think Delia slows down a little further than Joanna does. So Joanna hasn't faced anyone that has the ability to mix in her striking and grappling so effectively. Esparza was a great wrestler, but she had no striking at all to even set anything up. That's why she got picked apart. Joanna isn't going to be able to do that against. Interested in seeing what this fight looks like in rounds 3, 4, and 5, where I think it'll be close in the first 2. I think it's going to be very close. And picking Delia just because I personally thought she won the first fight. She's going to make that she's adjustments in her game that she'll be able to at least one of those final 3 rounds. I think she's going to take one of the first 2, maybe take the third, and pull out at least one of those 4th and 5th rounds. Just do enough. It may not be pretty, but I see her doing enough to win another or to get a decision victory.
Yeah, I actually think I'm gonna have to go against that, even though I don't know if she can do it. For a person with her caliber and being a champion, I'm gonna assume that she can do this, because to me, Joanna can make this really hard, or she can make it really easy, and it's all about her footwork. Instead, she's from a Muay Thai background, so she gives up clinches. She likes to come forward, and that's gonna walk her into takedowns and get her into exchanges that, while she might win, she's gonna probably take almost as good as she gives, because Claudia's stand-up has improved. And Claudia's, unlike a lot of the girls who fight Joanna, she's not afraid of getting hit. She'll get hit and fire right back. She'll get hit and continue to press. Esparza was, after she tasted that power, Esparza didn't want it anymore, and Pena couldn't take it. So I'm hoping, based off what I think she's capable of, that she actually lowers her stance, works her angles in, angles out, and kind of walks Claudia into her power shots and spins out and uses that jab, kind of disrupt that rhythm so Claudia can't get into that rhythm of throwing punches, transitioning to takedowns, cornering her on the cage, tying her up and working her down. Like, make her work to get those takedowns. Make her have to gas. Make her have to push just to get in a position to get her hands on you so you can kind of extend her a little bit down, kind of conserve your energy, pick your shots, and when she starts slowing down, then turn it on. I have to believe she's good enough to do that, because if she's not, then I don't know that she's championship worthy. She's not a real champion, in my opinion, because she has to be able to do that to win this fight. So I'm going to assume that she's good enough and she's been working on it, and she saw the last fight and she knows she can't get into those extended grappling exchanges with Claudia, and she's going to come out a little bit defensively sharper, working that jab, creating distance, and hitting angles. And I'm going to say that she can win a decision. She could get a late stoppage. If she makes her work hard enough and Claudia really has to extend herself, I think she can get a late stoppage, but most likely it's probably going to be a decision.
Okay, I can get with that. So let's look at some of the other fights that are scheduled for. And let me ask you this: have you watched any of this past season at all?
I've watched some of it because I was interested in the female fights. They tend to be. It's like that season they had with Ronda Rousey and Miesha Tate. The women fights tend to be a little bit more exciting, action-packed, or just a higher level of skill. The guys, I don't know how many of the guys could actually be legitimate, win a couple fights, get in title contention type fighters. Almost all the girls at strawweight, even the ones who tried out for the show, are fairly close to UFC level already. You know what I mean? Like, they're already they could probably compete with all those girls. So I watched it for the female fights. They're better. They're more evenly matched, and they're closer to actually being able to compete in the organization. I didn't watch it when the guys fought. I kind of just checked out a little bit. I try to ignore the drama. I just really try to see the fights, to be quite honest. The show's like, it's just, they don't have enough personalities, and it's kind of it's not as fun or original as it used to be. So I just kind of checked in for the girl fights because they seem to be closest to the level of fighter in the organization already.
You're better than me because I haven't watched any of it in years, and I probably won't. To be honest, I think that show kind of needs to go away. Maybe they should retool the way they look at creating non-fight content, but, that's just my opinion. But I do want to talk about this co-main event that features Will Brooks against Ross Pearson. I'm someone that's very I'm on Will Brooks. I think he has the ability to crack the top 5. Top 10, top 5 in the lightweight division in the UFC. I think he's bringing a lot of tools over it. I don't like how. My only concern is, he took this fight on short notice, and that's a big deal to be heading into the UFC. Anticipation behind you, but if anyone can get this win, he's facing a tough opponent in Ross Pearson. Pearson isn't ranked in the top 15 right now, but he's someone who has been highly ranked, of experience in this sport on the biggest stage. So it'll be interesting to see what type of pressure or how Brooks deals with that pressure. I would give the edge to Pearson in this bout, but the wrestling and grappling I definitely believe belongs to Will Brooks, and I think we will see most of this fight take place on the ground.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you. I've talked to people from ATT, and I've told them before, I don't think Will Brooks is a bad fighter. I think he's got the athletic ability. He transitions between the ranges. He's kind of like a version of Dustin Poirier, because he's like a version of Dustin Poirier. I know they probably train a lot together. I don't know that he's made the steps forward that Poirier has. Poirier's defense and countering has become really sharp. He's a lot less hittable. And as good as Brooks is, at times I feel he depends on that athleticism a little bit too much, which is fine against guys in Bellator who aren't used to facing top-end athleticism, and it's fine against guys who don't have top-end athleticism, but it kind of can be a problem against somebody who's familiar with that, who's got an idea of what a real athlete, a real explosive fighter seems like. I think his defense gets a little shaky. It might have improved by now, But when he fought Chandler the first time, that fight could have gone either way. It was a close decision in his front, but he took some shots in that. He got countered a little bit. He had some pressure put on him. He wasn't just dominant. In the second fight, it was a little bit more clear, but that was after, Chandler Chandler hasn't been the same, but it was more dominant performance from him. I think he probably wins. He transitions better, and recently Pearson has been a kind of guy who waits too long. He lets you get into a groove, and you can win on volume, and he's not good with kicks either. He's good at defending punches. He's very good at defending punches. He's not very good at defending kicks. If you can have a solid leg kick game, body kick game, inside-outside leg kick game, he's going to have problems. The length and the timing that comes with kicks plays all sorts of havoc with his counters and with his jab and with his aggression. My problem is that Will Brooks isn't exactly a finisher, and he might give Pearson some courage by not being able to finish or just take over the fight and clearly dominate it, really punish him and just walk all the way through him. He might give Pearson the confidence that's going to let Pearson start coming on and landing counters and putting pressure on him and working the body and moving his head and cutting the cage off and really making a fight. And I don't think Brooks is in a spot where he can afford to be in a tough fight with a guy like Pearson. As much as we say Pearson's a veteran and he's faced the big lights, he's not in the top 15. Brooks is supposed to walk through a guy like this. He's supposed to put on a clear, clean, dominant win against a guy like this. And if he doesn't, that's going to be a big shot to where his standing in the division and where he goes in the division. He has to win this, and this is the kind of fight he's supposed to win and win impressively. It can be competitive, but he's got to win impressively. And he's not a finisher, and he's tended to give guys confidence by not making that press, by not going for that finish, by letting guys get into a groove. He did it against Marcin Held. He's done it multiple times. And if he does it again against a veteran like Pearson, it's going to be a very long night for him, and that's not very good for his brand. That being said, I still say he's a better athlete. He's a better all-around MMA fighter, and he's got the tools to win, so I'm going to go with Brooks too. I just like to explain why I'm going with the direction I'm going. I do apologize for being long-winded.
No, it's all good, man. It's all good. So actually, I want to look at two other fighters who are fighting on Friday as well, Gray Maynard and John Moraga. How Gray Maynard's career has changed since that draw that he and Frankie Edgar had the second time they fought. I mean, I think he's only won one out of his last 7 fights, something along those lines. He loses on Friday. He's probably out of the organization and potentially out of the sport. He's taken a lot of damage. He hasn't looked anywhere near the same type of competitor that almost finished Frankie Edgar and actually has a win over Edgar as well. Seeing what he looks like coming out into this fight on Friday. I'm also interested in John Moraga as well, who I think who's often overlooked in the flyweight division. He has that loss to Demetrius Johnson, and he's gone back and forth trading wins for losses since. But he's someone I definitely think that is worth watching. I enjoy all of his competitions every time he's in the cage, so I'm looking forward to seeing him fight too.
Yeah, I've actually liked Gray Maynard. He seems like a good guy, and for a time he actually was progressing and getting better. And I said this on Twitter, so people who follow me on Twitter know I've said this, and I've said this before back when I used to call in shows, and it's going to sound harsh again, but he's the example I use of people of what happens when you take advantage of your youth and you don't take advantage of your physical skill sets. At some point, Gray Maynard decided whatever I'm doing is good enough, and he won a bunch of fights, and then he got to a point where he wasn't winning them, and his skills weren't enough, and he couldn't make adjustments, and he didn't have the defensive skills to not get put away. But he always had a chin. He had that wrestling. He had his athleticism to fall back on. These holes he has in his game aren't brand new. They've been there almost his entire career. The thing is, he was young enough, able to recover, able to take it to the ground, able to hit with power to make up for these deficiencies. But now, after getting kind of handled by Edgar and then getting knocked out, he doesn't have that anymore. And now he's working on his skills, and he's probably a better MMA fighter than he's been now in the past couple of years than he's been in the last 4 or 5 years of his actual career. The thing is, he doesn't have the durability anymore. He doesn't have the margin for error. Now the same shots that if he would have fought this way against Edgar, the way he's fought in his past couple fights, he might have won because he's mixing it up. He's transitioning between punching and wrestling, striking and wrestling, wrestling and grappling. Before it was box, 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 wrestle, wrestle, wrestle. That's why Edgar beat him. Edgar mixed it up. He faked on the shot, hit him with the right hand. He hit him with the right hand. He'd fake the right hand, get the takedown. He'd angle in, looking like he's going to strike, take him down. Or he'd angle out like he's going to back all the way out because he missed a shot, and then he'd walk Maynard into a strike. He mixed it up, and Maynard couldn't match it because he was one thing or the other. And it caught up to him. And now he's using all the skills, but he can't take abuse anymore. He can't take it like he used to. So now he makes one error, it's over. He fought Ross Pearson, gave him a great first round. In my opinion, probably won the first round. The minute Pearson touched him, it was a wrap. And as much as I like him, and I'd like to see him win, and he might win, I can't bet on him anymore. I can't bet on a guy who can't take abuse because you're in a contact combat sport. If you can't take a clean shot, how are you going to win fights? Every fight he's done well in until he got hit in the past 3 or 4 years. He fought Nate Diaz, did okay until he got punched. He fought Ross Pearson, did okay until Pearson caught him clean. And if he had the chin he had 4 or 5 years ago, 6, 7 years ago, I'd say he could be a contender at this weight class. But he doesn't. So he's got to be almost perfect. He doesn't have any room for error. And I can't pick a guy who I have no confidence in his ability to take abuse.
I can definitely rock with everything you're saying there. What are your thoughts on Moraga, though? What do you think is next for him in the flyweight division?
He can put a couple fights together. He can get back into contention. I think he kind of lucked out on getting his title fight in the first place. He's not a bad fighter. He's skilled. He's got some ability. He's mentally tough. He's physically tough. But if Johnson hadn't been as dominant as he has been, I don't know that Moraga would have gotten a title fight in the first place. It's just Johnson has wiped everybody out. So everybody gets a shot at him because everybody gets a shot because he beats everybody up, and he beats them up so dominantly so that he's going through the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th ranked guy. He can get all the way to the 15th because he's beat everybody else. So if you can just hang around long enough, you'll get one shot at him, you might get another. Moraga's just got to put some wins together. Until he puts some wins together, he's not going to be much of a force. He's not going to get a push. He's not going to have another shot at Johnson. And I don't know that he's going to be able to do that. I think the win-loss kind of fighter we've seen recently is actually who he is. I think that's more representative of who he is than the guy who had the little streak before. I think he's still the same fighter, but against a certain class of fighter, he's going to win, he's going to lose, he's going to win, he's going to lose. And I think that's what you're going to see the large part of his career at flyweight, in my opinion.
I don't play about that at all, but we're gonna talk about Saturday. There's so much on this UFC 200 card, so much. So where to begin? We're gonna start from the bottom, work our way up. Save the best for last. So some of these topics here. Let me look at. Let's talk about this whole card, top to bottom. First and foremost, Sage Northcutt and Enrique Marin. Northcutt is going back to his original weight class, lightweight, 155 pounds, where he is undefeated. His first loss came as a welterweight. So I'm interested in getting this. One interesting thing about Northcutt is I kind of feel like he still has that personality, when he's doing interviews, but he's starting to get tired of taking people's crap, in a sense. If you listen to the way his interview went on the MMA Hour, I believe last Monday or the Monday before, where he was talking about who spoke ill of his father, it sounds like Northcutt is kind of getting tired of some of the negative things that are being said about him. He had some strong words for that fighter, strong words for Brian Barberina as well. Yes, he's 20 years old. Yes, he's a UFC's golden boy because of the way he looks. Totally understand that. And interested in seeing, I want to see him be successful because I'm always interested in watching athletes develop into the person they're supposed to be. It happens so rarely, especially in this day and age where everyone's so quick to try to tear you down. It happens so rarely that when it does, it's pleasant to watch. It's rather interesting to watch. So I'm interested in seeing how far he goes, what his development is like over the next 2, 3, 4 years, and just to see what type of fighter does he become. Does he go on to become a top 10, top 15, top 5, maybe champion? I don't know. The verdict's still out on that. He still has 10 years before he's technically in his athletic prime. So I'm certainly interested in seeing what he has going for him. This fight on Saturday is not a gimme. He's fighting a guy that has experience, someone who's on the Ultimate Fighter Latin America. So while I think he will pull out the win, dangerous fight for him. So I'm expecting to see him progress some and go and have a victory, but it's not going to be an easy bout in any shape or form.
Yeah, I heard about the interview, and it's like I'm kind of conflicted on it because on one instance, I'm glad he's kind of taking control and shedding a little bit of that image and showing people that he's willing to push back when you take shots at him. But the problem I have with it is I have a problem. This is the problem I have with fighters and even coaches in general. Sometimes they may know all these techniques and skills, but they don't understand. It's like I used to coach all-star basketball for girls. And this guy I coach with, who's a head coach, he told me, it's not that I know everything. It's not that I'm much better than these guys. I just understand what's happening. I understand what's happening with the people on the floor. I understand what's happening with myself. And if you don't understand what's happening, all the skill and all the athletic ability won't help you. Northcutt he's an A-plus athlete. There's very few of those in the UFC. He is an A++ athlete. He's got basic good striking skills. He's got good wrestling skills. He's got good grappling. It's more of his ability to transition is what defines him. That's what makes him good. But when you start talking like he's been talking, the question I have is, are you telling that to us? Because it's okay for you to say that to us and put that strong front out. But when you're home, when you're by yourself, are you being very honest? Are you aware that the reason you lost that fight with Barberena isn't because you were sick? It's because you don't have enough legitimate grappling skill. When someone forced you to be in a position and you couldn't transition out of it, you got finished. And on the feet, when you couldn't transition to a quick takedown and ground and pound or submission, that's why you lost. Your athleticism determined the first round. He started getting your timing. He started punching back. He didn't get intimidated by your power. And all of a sudden, you started going for takedowns. And you got out-grappled. You got forced to be in a position, and you got taken apart in that position because you didn't have enough depth to your game. Is he being that honest with himself? If he's not going to progress any further. He's got all the ability, and he's young. He's got time, but he's got to understand that he has flaws that need to be addressed. He needs to have better sparring. I've heard stuff about his sparring from other people. He needs to have better athletes around him. He needs to have a better level of skill around him. He needs to probably go somewhere else. And if he's not doing that, I don't see how he wins this, even though I don't think the guy from the Latin America is going to be particularly tough, because if he was all that great, they wouldn't be giving him Sage Northcutt. They're trying to get Sage back on the winning track with somebody who's familiar to the masses and someone who can fight a bit. That guy's not supposed to win that fight. He's not supposed to. If he was supposed to win it, they wouldn't put him in with Sage Northcutt, because Sage Northcutt has a big upside. He has a really big upside if he can ever become a legitimate guy back on the street. So I have to say Sage Northcutt could win it because he's supposed to. I don't know how much confidence I have in it because I don't know that he's addressing the problems that he has in his actual skill set, all his skill sets. Because as talented as he is, he's pretty limited in all of them. He's just good at putting them together. And I don't know if he's addressing that. If he is, he's going to win, and he's going to go on a streak. If he's not, it's going to be another embarrassing loss that he's going to be making excuses for. And that whole I'm sick and blah, blah, blah. And except you have to be better. When guys start making excuses, I start listening, because I've actually worked with fighters before. We've had game plans. They didn't execute them. They start making excuses. I'm like, hey, that's not what the plan was. You just didn't pull off the plan. You didn't. That's on you. It's not on me. That's on you. And I don't know that somebody's telling him that. I don't know that anybody's telling him that. If they're not, he's not going to get any better. He's going to lose the same way he lost the first time. But I'll go with you. He's going to win this fight, but he's supposed to win it. And they're giving him a guy he should be able to beat.
Okay, I can get with that. Definitely some interesting critiques there of a very young fighter. We touched on it briefly, but what about Kat Zingano versus Juliana Pena? I think this is a huge one here because a lot of the story is surrounding Pena, right? A lot of the story is surrounding Zingano with her finally coming back more than a year removed from her loss to Rousey in 14 seconds. So a lot of the story is surrounding her redemption. But on the other hand, you have a very tough as well, who, legal issues aside, is someone that the UFC wanted to push as a new face in this bantamweight division. So I feel like a win for either one of these two women puts them maybe one. I see probably one fight outside of title shot contention. Looking at these two individuals, and of taking a fighter who has had so much time off, regardless of if they've been training the whole time. She had time away from the cage, and she suffered a knee injury in Zingano. So I think that I'm a fan of hers as a fighter. I'm going to lean more towards Pena just because she's been more active. But coming off of the same standard, same activity level, I would lean with Zingano. But I shy away from taking fighters who have been away from the cage for more than a year.
Yeah, that's actually a very astute statement. I know Dominic Cruz says that ring rust doesn't exist, and that might be true in his case, but he's a guy with exceptional IQ, exceptional work ethic, and a very unique style and skill set that allows him to navigate the downfalls of, not sparring or not fighting for a while. I mean, if you're anybody who's trained, I know I am, as I recall, you trained yourself, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
For a while, your timing, it's just hard. It's just a tough situation. It's very humbling when you haven't done it for a while. You remember how good you used to be. You're going up with somebody who's been doing it every day and actively using that skill set and that conditioning. So I think you make a very legitimate point about Zingano. I think, given her storyline with Miesha Tate, you'd probably be right. If she wins, she would be within a fight of fighting Miesha Tate again if Miesha doesn't take some time off. Pena did, and she has. I think she has a lot of potential. I think she's actually one of the contenders I consider at the weight class who people don't mention. Both of them are from Tough. Her and Raquel Pennington are actually the people I think are potential contenders nobody's listening to. I think Pena's going to win it. This is a fight with a lot of questions for me because neither one of them has ever really shown an ability to adjust. They've always been able to out-athlete, out-physical, and essentially beat people up. I mean, Zingano runs people over. She just runs people over. She did it to Nunez. She did it to, I can't even remember the other girl's name, but she beat her within an inch of her life. She just got her down and roughed her up. And they both can take a shot. They're both very physical. They're both very strong. The only difference is, while I haven't seen either one of them adjust, I've never seen Julia Pena ragdolled. I've never seen someone manhandle her. I've seen Zingano get manhandled by Rousey, and I saw Zingano for 2.5 rounds get taken down, roughed up, and beat up by Miesha Tate. And as good as Miesha Tate is, she is not a big enough, strong enough athlete where she should be physically dominating anybody. And I'm a huge Miesha Tate fan. Great IQ, great chin, great cardio. She's not a physical beast. She shouldn't be running over anybody like that. And Julia Pena is a better athlete. She's bigger, she's stronger, and she's physically tough. I think it's a competitive fight, but I think Pena takes it over. I think part of it's the ring rust. I think part of it is just she's like a younger, bigger version of Kat Zingano. Zingano has the better skills, but Zingano tends to start slow, and I don't think you can start slow against someone like Pena. I think Pena's going to win, and most likely by decision. It could be by stoppage, depending on if she's cleaned up her striking a little bit.
Yeah, I definitely can agree with you on that. I hope she's not someone that comes out with like and tries to finish it early, because we've seen Zingano turn around fights late. But that's definitely a fight I'm interested in seeing. So next up, we have the fight between Gomi and Jim Miller. These are two fights that I'm interested in because I think that they're just going to be fun fights. The Gomi-Miller fight and then the Diego Sanchez-Joe Lauzon fight. There's no title implications in mind. There's no rankings in mind. These are just fun fights that are stylistic matchups in every aspect of the game. So I'm looking forward to both of these fights. I think Miller beats Gomi, and I think that Sanchez beats Lauzon. But either way, I'm still looking forward to seeing what happens in both of these fights. I
agree with you. I thought Sanchez was going to beat Miller. Everybody told me I was crazy. He beat him, and I think he beats Lauzon too. Lauzon's taken some pretty bad beatings in the past couple of years. Like, I know Diego has too, but I think it's just going to be a fun fight. I think Diego wants it more. I think he's, just more aggressive, punishing guy. He's not going to get submitted. We know that much. we know he's not getting submitted. So I'd agree with you on both ends. I mean, and in the instance of Miller and Gomi, I think Gomi could still knock Miller out. But most likely he wasn't. Gomi hasn't looked like he's trained for a legitimate fight in years. He gets taken down, he gets finished like by everybody at this stage. So you have to go with Miller. But they'll be fun while they last. So you got that right. I agree with you on both points completely.
After that, we have another interesting fight, a rematch actually between TJ Dillashaw and Raphael Garcia from their 2003 fight. Will win this fight, obviously. I'll never take a fighter that's been away from the sport for an extended period of time, like a Sun Sao. I thought Dillashaw won the first fight, and he's gotten so much better in these 3 years that I just think that he's gonna fight it win on Saturday.
I want to agree. I think Dillashaw is going to win. And, at the beginning of the show, I thanked you for letting me be on the show because I really appreciate it. I have to apologize because I make some very pointed statements about fighters. So I apologize for putting you in that spot. I do apologize to you for that, man.
You're fine. You're fine.
Dillashaw's got the better striking range. He's younger. He takes a better shot. Once again, he hits hard, but his power is a little overrated. But I think unless Dillashaw jumps on him quick, Dillashaw is still going to have problems with him because Dillashaw's defense is awful. When he's dancing around on the outside moving, he's fine, but that's also when he's not doing anything striking-wise. The minute he starts throwing punches, he becomes like a heavy bag. Even with Dwayne Ludwig, look at almost every one of his fights. Even Barao, weight drain, all messed up, was putting hands on him the first fight. The second fight, Barao made no improvement, was still putting hands on him. Joe Soto hit him with so many right hands. I was like, I can't believe you can't avoid these shots. And Joe Soto's no world beater. And Joe Soto was hitting him anytime he wanted to. Dillashaw doesn't know how to make a fight easy unless he runs somebody over. And he could do that to a Sun Sao. He'll probably win because of all the reasons I mentioned, and he's sharper, and he's been competing at a higher level. But a Sun Sao, last time he fought, was using a kind of awkward, kind of long karate-type stance, and he had kind of odd timing and delivery of his strikes. And if he's improved on that and he's worked on that, he's going to still cause Dillashaw problems because Dillashaw, his defense is just awful. It's awful, and he gets angry in there. He puts too much volume in there, and he serves himself up for counters and leads all the time. I'm telling you, watch TJ versus Cruz, TJ versus Barao, both fights, TJ versus Soto. He's winning the exchanges. He's landing a lot of shots, but look how many times he's getting hit. A world champion, supposedly pound-for-pound guy getting hit that much by guys who were either faded, weight drained, or not in his class. That shouldn't happen. That should not happen. And he gets hit a lot. So I still think he's going to win, but unless he blows him out early, I don't think it's going to be easy. But like you said, Sun Xiao's been out for a long time. I agree, too. I thought he lost the first fight. But stylistically, TJ's going to give you chances. If you got a chin and you're willing to punch back or punch with him, he'll give you chances to win. He'll give you chances to compete. And Sun Xiao needs to win this fight. He's been out for a while. He needs to win this fight. So I don't think he will, but I think he's going to put on a good performance. And I think TJ will just win based off volume and aggression, physicality as always.
Good. That's some good analysis there. Right, with Johnny Hendricks and Kelvin Gastelum. Hendricks is another one of those guys. You've talked about it a lot about guys who look differently after a loss. We have Hendricks who he won the welterweight title. I thought he was going to hold that belt for a long time. Beat Lawler in the rematch. I haven't watched it since, but if I remember correctly, I believed he defeated Lawler in the rematch. He got a raw deal on the scorecards. It happens. Part by Stephen Thompson. So what version of Hendricks are we going to see on Saturday? And he's facing someone who's extremely tough in Kelvin Gastelum, a big guy in Kelvin Gastelum as well, too. I'm still waiting to see. I wouldn't be surprised if both of them missed weight, but that's another conversation for another day. But I'm looking at this fight as this is a real on Hendricks, simply because that the UFC would not like to see get back into the title picture. And if he suffers one too many losses, he's going to be put into that John Fitch category, where no matter who he beats, he's just going to be out there middling around until he fades away from the sport. So this is a big fight for him against another guy who the UFC wanted to get behind but kind of messed that up himself. But Gastelum still has one foot out of the doghouse as opposed to Hendricks, who's basically got a sleeping bag in the back. So I'm looking at this fight as a fight that Gastelum should win, but I'm more interested in seeing how Hendricks looks coming out of the octagon on Saturday.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you. I'm going to pick Hendricks because I have to go with the veteran. I always tell people experience counts. I get athleticism. I get explosiveness. I get not been through as many wars. I get all that. But there's a certain level you're at to be a world champion. There's a certain level on your way up. And even in his losses that Johnny Hendricks has had to perform, there's certain things he's had to work past just not to even get KO'd. I don't know that Gastelum's the guy who's going to push him past that point. I've seen Gastelum get out hustled before by guys who wanted. Neil Magny beat Gastelum. Neil Magny's no one's athlete. He's no one top-end fighter, not on the ground, not on the feet. He's a good, disciplined guy with a good IQ, a lot of experience, and who basically just outworked Gastelum. And Gastelum couldn't figure him out until late. And by that time, it was too late. And I think Hendricks' main goal needs to be to mix it up. He needs to work those kicks. He needs to work the body, chop up Gastelum to the body, and kind of control the pace. I think Gastelum's a better athlete at this point, and Johnny Hendricks needs to fight him in spots when he has to, but he needs to just control the pace and kind of outsmart him. Use that veteran experience. I think he's going to win because, like you said, if he loses, he's in worse than a John Fitch position. John Fitch was had only until he had his decline in the UFC, he was only I think he only lost 2 fights. He was fighting on 8-fight win streaks. They just didn't want him to fight because he was boring. And Hendricks hasn't shown that. Hendricks is kind of fallen a little bit off of a cliff, and I like Hendricks, but he's fallen a little bit off of a cliff as far as his excitement and his dominance. So he has to win this fight. This isn't a fight he can afford to lose, especially not by he can't get finished. He just can't. His record, his standing in the UFC won't allow it. So he has to fight smart. If it needs to be boring, it's going to be boring. Mix up his striking. I hope he's in good shape because if he slows down, Gastelum will come on late, and he might get stopped. But I think he's going to fight smart. He's going to make it ugly. He's going to work the combinations, work the body, chop Gastelum down, and grind him out. I don't think he's taking any chances in this fight unless something wide open comes. So I expect him to win. I expect him to win decisively, but it'll be competitive. And I expect him to fight like a veteran and pull it out. If he doesn't, then I'm giving him the same treatment Roy Nelson has with Lewis. He's going to lose, and he's going to lose badly.
Are Rouseys and Thiago Santos, are we going to see an upset here? I don't think so. I was going to pick Rouseys over Brunson anyway, but Rouseys is someone who I understand his demeanor is very, very solemn. He's very quiet. He doesn't do a lot of the other things that some fighters may do, but I like him as a competitor. He goes in there and he fights in a way to get the win. That may not be exciting to everybody, but I've always been a fan of his, back to his Strikeforce and days in Dream. So I'm looking forward to this fight. I think he gets the win over Santos, but I think Santos is going to come in there and have some good moments.
I'll go with Rouseys too. He's got the experience. He's got the skills. As long as he doesn't get too cocky or he doesn't get crazy in it, and I'll just go with him off of experience and competition level. It's a win for him, in my opinion.
Okay, and so moving forward, we have the first fight. I think this is the first fight on the main card, or actually, but Cain Velasquez, Travis Brown. Again, this is another referendum on a former champion to see what type of guy is Cain Velasquez. Is he the man who stomped Bigfoot Silva into the mat in the middle of a bloodbath, or that basically wilted against Werdum last year? So who are we going to see on Saturday? I think that he gets the win over Brown, but I think he takes a lot of damage here. I think he takes a lot of damage, and it doesn't look good at any point in time. But I think he has the abilities to control enough of this fight to win 2 out of the 3 rounds. I think Brown's going to have a good first round, but from there, I just give the rest of the fight to Velasquez being able to control and dominate through wrestling and boxing.
Yeah, Brown to me, he really can't wrestle. He's a big, strong, athletic guy, capable of finishing anybody. Pretty shaky. He's got a lot of heart. I think he gets hit too early and too often. Should be physical and strong enough and have enough pressure and activity to beat him. He should. And isn't the same guy he was before. And I kind of Maynard, he's not as bad as him. He's still a competitor. He still can beat a lot of guys. He's still got a lot left. In my opinion, he's kind of limited in some of the skills he uses. And since he's had those losses, he's just not the same guy. He should beat Brown to beat him, in my opinion. He doesn't have the grappling. He can catch him on the feet. But if Cain's focused and he's got that hunger, I think he's going to be a little bit sharper, be a little bit smarter, and just grind him down and then run him over, pull away late. But Brown has a chance. He has a puncher's chance, but that's about it. From what I've seen of Brown, he's just cardio not good enough, defense not good enough, wrestling not good enough, grappling not good enough. And if he beats Cain, that tells me a lot more about where Cain is right now than it tells me that Brown's a top competitor. Because if he beats Cain, I'm not saying he's a top competitor. I'm saying Cain's time as a top competitor is over.
What's scary about this, though, is that I'm going to disagree with you on that, though, because this heavyweight division is such a mess that both of these guys could lose this fight, and then by next year they could be heavyweight world champion. This heavyweight division really is, because we're about to talk about Brock Lesnar and fighting Mark Hunt, and people are honestly legit believing that if Lesnar wins this fight, that he can put together a run. And I mean, like, this whole division is.
And I would agree. It's. I mean, you can literally go from being handed your pink slip to top 5 contender. I mean, like you said, Lesnar's come back, and even Mark Hunt go on a run and get a title shot. Nobody would have ever expected that when he got into MMA.
Okay, so then we already talked about the Miesha Tate, Amanda Nunez fight. So let's talk about Jose Aldo, Frankie Edgar. I'm really interested in because I believe that we've seen 2 guys go on some different career paths. I'm going to compare the career path that Aldo and Edgar have gone on since their first fight to that of what happened between Maynard and Edgar, how they went on 2 different career paths. Edgar's kept going up, Maynard's went down. For Aldo, same thing, but it's not as drastic. I think that he hasn't evolved enough, make those leaps and make those improvements to keep that gap supposedly in that first fight still there. There are people who will argue with you that Frankie won that first fight. I still haven't gone back and watched it, but he's made a lot of improvements since then. He's been to start. He's being more active. He's finishing fighters, and Aldo doesn't look very different than he did 2014. So I'm looking for Edgar to win this fight. I think that he gets started early. It's not going to be easy. I think it's going to be another one of those type situations, but I think that he, as he mentioned, I believe yesterday during an interview, that he's intending to get started faster, which I think is very key to this fight because I believe he has the abilities to wear down Aldo if he can just pressure this guy with wrestling, positioning, and volume striking like he normally does.
You know, I want to agree with you, but the thing about it is he wanted to get off to a fast start. He actually doesn't have a problem getting off to a fast start against guys who don't have good footwork and don't have good jabs. I've seen him get off to a fast start against a lot of guys and outwork them and take them down and put volume on them. He tried to do that against Jose, but the thing about it is Jose kept picking him off of that jab. The difference in that fight wasn't just his all-around striking or his athleticism. That jab disrupted Frankie's rhythm. It disrupted his ability to close distance. He couldn't get in for takedowns. He couldn't get his strikes going. He couldn't even get into the range he wanted to because Jose kept sticking him with that jab and kicking him in the legs and kicking him in the body and throwing that right hand. And I don't know that Jose's actually gotten worse as a fighter. I mean, he probably hasn't improved that much, but he was light years ahead of the division. So the gap's closed. I don't know if it's closed enough for Edgar. My concern is that he's psychologically and physically ruined by what he went through with Conor McGregor. I mean, McGregor hit him and put his lights out. If he's not damaged goods, if he's recovered fine, and usually guys with flash knockouts usually recover a little bit better than guys who have extended beatings, then I would have to pick Aldo to win. I mean, I've seen Edgar show improvements, but he's shown improvements against guys who don't have the skill set to limit what he likes to do. The Charles Oliveira, he's not a good enough striker. His jab isn't good enough to keep Edgar out. His footwork isn't good enough to keep Edgar out. What's his name? Cub Swanson, as dynamic as he is on offense, he's terrible on defense. He doesn't have a really good jab. He doesn't have really consistent footwork or put combinations together really good. Chad Mendes, he beat him and knocked him out quick. But did Chad Mendes lose because Edgar's got better power, or did he lose because he took beatings from Conor McGregor and Jose Aldo? I mean, Mendes in all of his fights he's lost has been close to being knocked out, if not knocked out. He's been knocked out quite a few times. So, 2, 3 knockouts. He was knocked out in the second Aldo fight. It just hit the bell before. So I don't know if I buy that. I know that he's improved, but I don't know that he's improved to the point where he's going to run over Aldo. I'm going to go with Aldo because I think he's fine. I think he's recovered. I think he knows this is his one shot to get back at Conor McGregor. And if he doesn't win this next fight, his whole legacy kind of comes under scrutiny a lot more. Like, were you really that good, or were you just beating up on inferior opposition? So I think he comes out, and I think he's good enough to win a decision. I just hope he doesn't come out fighting stupid, trying to be exciting to prove a point, walk into something from Edgar. He's got to fight the same fight he always does, just with a little bit more aggression, but still have as much control, because Edgar's going to come out harder. He's going to give him opportunities to finish him. It's just a matter of, is Aldo going to fight smart and do what it takes to take advantage of them? So I'm going Aldo.
I can go with you on that. I definitely see what you're saying. I'm hoping Edgar gets the win, but I think it's going to be a tough one. It's going to be another tough one there too. Co-main event, obviously we have Brock Lesnar, Mark Hunt. I think that's interesting. I'm picking Mark Hunt just because Brock doesn't like to get punched in the face, but I can see this fight. I could see Lesnar finding a way to win 2 out of the 3 rounds of this fight. Maybe even getting a submission, someone brought it to me, which is interesting. But, on 5 weeks' notice, coming off of, 6 years away from the sport, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens on Saturday. I'm going to lean more towards Mark Hunt, but there's something about Lesnar I want to talk about after you give your
as much as he doesn't like to get hit, I'm just going to go crazy and say I'm just going to go with Lesnar. He's athletic enough, and Hunt's harder to take down, but he's been taken down by guys who aren't good wrestlers. I mean, Struve took him down, Bigfoot took him down. They're not as good athletes as Lesnar. They're not as strong or fast, and they're not as good of wrestlers. I know Lesnar hasn't fought in a while, but his wrestling is probably top 2 in the division. I mean, who's a better wrestler than Brock Lesnar in MMA heavyweights? Like, literally nobody. And he has enough power. He could finish Hunt on the feet, not skill-wise, not in exchange. But if he hit Hunt, he could put him away. He's got that kind of power. If he gets on top of him, he could finish him with strikes too. And Hunt's not a very good grappler. He's not going to submit anybody. I don't know how good he is at hitting reversals against somebody like, to me, Brock Lesnar, if he's prepared at all, and I have to believe he's been preparing for this for a while, he gets the takedown and he can lay on him for 2 rounds and just have to survive the third. Yeah, but I'm going to go with Lesnar by decision.
Lesnar by decision. That's interesting there. Now, let me ask you this. Is this the last time you see him in Octagon, and what happens next? I think, obviously, he still has the contractual obligation with the WWE. Talking about him so much, they will be announcing his SummerSlam opponent, I think, or maybe Yeah, on Monday or Tuesday, I believe they're announcing his opponent for SummerSlam, but they're not talking about him as much. I don't think they're going to let him go without a fight. But I think he comes back to pro wrestling and he tries to do both. But star power that this is going to be one of the situations where he's going to be allowed to do both. I think he's going to bounce back and forth and appear for both organizations probably once more.
Hello?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Just cut out for a second. I think it depends on if he wins and how he looks. I can't imagine he's in this for the long haul. How old is he? 40 yet? He's like, what, 37, 38?
39, yeah.
I mean, if he wasn't in the heavyweight division where he's still probably a top 3 athlete in the division for the most part, I don't know that he would come back and do this. I mean, he's got enough money. He's just doing this to leverage some interest in his wrestling. And, I mean, he's never been shy about saying he's about the money. He's not doing this for the fans. He's not doing this because he has an urge to compete. He's not doing any of that. He knows he can get a huge paycheck and increase his brand, and that'll roll over to wrestling. If he wins this fight and then goes back into a wrestling fight, you know, how much attention does that bring? You know, you're a active who just won after a 6-year layoff against a ranked heavyweight, and now you're doing wrestling. What kind of attention does that bring you? You know what I mean? I think it's just like a play, and if he wins the fight, I think he'll continue. If he loses, especially if he gets knocked out really badly, I don't know that he continues. I think it's just a better way of him maximizing his earning and trying to make one more big push to get a big contract and make some big money before he starts tailing off in his career.
Yeah, I'm definitely. I don't know. He's like you mentioned. He's certainly about the money with this. I just think that I don't know. You know, it's the heavyweight division. These guys are older. They're hanging around. I'm interested. I hope he makes it work. I hope he makes the back and forth work, and that he can star for pro wrestling and be a star in MMA as well. Because I want to see those two merge. Just because I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. Mixed martial arts they're the cousins that are best friends, but get into fights every now and then. And I just think that this is something that will work out best for both groups if they find a way to make it work.
Yeah, the UFC wants it to work, and trust me, Brock Lesnar, as dangerous as Mark Hunt is, I still believe it's like the Sage Northcutt thing. He didn't pick. I think he had some choice in who he fought, and I think he picked the guy he picked for a reason. Dangerous enough to get that respect because Hunt's been taken down repeatedly and come back and knock people out. And he's knocked out some very good heavyweights. So it's a dangerous fight. But in a certain level, if Lesnar's on point and he's really prepared, it's also an easy fight. If you understand where I'm coming from. So it covers both bases. He has the clear path to victory, but he also has a clear path to defeat. And even if he beats Hunt, nobody can say he got a pushover. He didn't get some guy who couldn't fight or hadn't knocked out the best of the best in the UFC. So it's like a win-win. Even if he loses, he's been out, he fought a very dangerous guy, he wins. He came out for 6 years and beat a ranked guy. There's a reason he picked Hunt, and I think the UFC wants it to work because it just helps their pocketbook. It helps them sell. It helps them get more exposure because now from that point on, you mentioned WWE, you got to mention the UFC because Brock Lesnar is bouncing between them.
So, okay, well then, I think this is probably why I'm most interested in this fight. I want to see if he's going to get the win, what happens next, and how will the WWE respond to that. But before we, obviously we're pushing up on an hour and a half, I want to talk about the main event there. We have Jon Jones and Daniel Cormier in the main event. I'm looking at this fight, and I'm looking at Jones to win. I think it's going to be closer than it was the first time they fought. There are some key points that I wrote about yesterday about how Jones can win this fight again, and a lot of it stems back to what he did last time. But I'm most interested in seeing, he's talked about not lifting weight at all for this fight camp, but I'm wondering what his endurance looks like, and if he'll be able to remain aggressive for 25 minutes, because I feel like Cormier is going to be much more active in this fight to try to get Jones to wear down at some point in time.
Yeah, I'd probably agree. I think Cormier. I think his chance to win a fight, he's got to risk being finished. Like he said before, I'm willing to die. He's actually got to risk being finished to win this fight. Trying to push the pace and just be physical and grind on Jones. I think it's a bad plan for him. I think at his age and all his fights have been tough. Like recently, the Jones fight, Gustafsson and Johnson have been really punishing, tough fights, and he's getting older and he's closer to his decline. I just think he has to do something a little bit different that I haven't seen him do in a while, and I don't know that he's capable of doing it. He's another year older. He's had more wear and tear, and as much as John has been off and maybe lost some edge, he's fresh. He's gotten to recover, heal, get some perspective, and he got a fight in between. Had he not had that fight, I might have gone with Cormier, but it's hard to go with Cormier given what I've seen from him. What I've seen from him wouldn't beat the old Jones. I don't know that what I've seen from him would beat this Jones fight. So I have to go with Jones. I have to go with Jones. Until Jones gets outclassed and truly beaten, I can't go with anybody else. It'd be kind of irresponsible for me to go the opposite direction.
So what do you think happens if Cormier gets the fight? Do we get an immediate rematch?
If he wins the fight, they're getting a rematch.
Yeah.
If he loses, I think he might retire because he will officially be second place in division, and he's not going to get a third shot at Jones. If he loses this fight, unfortunately, it's kind of like his entire career where he just hasn't been quite enough to be the elite, the man, because he's still not the man. He hasn't beaten Jones. So if he loses, I fully expect him to retire. He's not going up to heavyweight. Kane's still there. So either move to another organization or he's going to retire. I can't see him just fighting just to fight. Like, I think the competition really matters to him. Like, it's really important to him.
Well, I mean, I don't know. Man, I would be surprised if he retired. How old is he? Is he like 36?
Yeah.
Man, I think that would be I could someone that is as competitive as he is. Wow, I couldn't imagine him retiring just yet, especially after a loss. Wow, I don't know, but yeah, you're right. You know, that would be a tough way for him to take yet another bout. Drop another bout to a guy that he fights or he hates.
And yeah, a guy he doesn't like. Plus, he's got a lot of options. He does a lot of work outside the UFC. It's not like the UFC is his main source of money. I mean, he does a lot of other stuff related to MMA that's not fighting. He could do coaching, wrestling coaching, hosting shows. He's a great analyst. You know, he's a personality. So it's not like this is all he has. Beating Jones is the one thing he wants to achieve so he can have that mark on his record. But if he doesn't do it, I don't see what he would do. He's not going to get another title fight. He'd have to hope somebody else beats Jones.
That's very true. That's definitely very true. So I definitely appreciate you being on today's show. You know, we had some very good conversation about what's going to go down between Thursday through Saturday. I'm looking forward to it, man. It's going to be a great night of fights. I'm working some of them as well, so I'll be sure to see everything. Let's do this. Let everyone know where they can follow you on Twitter and catch up with everything that you're talking about when it comes to the sport.
I'm at Twitter, Schwan Humes, at Black Jordan Breen. Just put in Black Jordan Breen, BLAK JORDAN BREEN, or just go with Schwan Humes, SCHWAN HUMES. You just want to talk MMA, you want to talk strategies, you want to talk coaching, you want to talk corners. Enjoy discussing any and every level about it. Even if you're a fighter or a coach, you want to have a discussion about it. You don't have to tweet me. You can DM me. Trust me, a lot of fighters that you see on Bellator, UFC, they contact me and want to talk about fights and talk about their opponents. So, you know, I just enjoy the sport and I enjoy any opportunity I have to talk about it. And Raphael, I want to thank you once again. It's nice to see someone who has passion trying to expand the horizons for it. And I appreciate you giving me a outlet to kind of share my knowledge and share my opinions. Hope I didn't get you in any trouble with what I said.
No, man.
But I just appreciate it. Thank you for letting me ramble. And you know what? I just really appreciate you giving me a shot to kind of get out there and do my thing.
Of course, man. You'll definitely be back next week. We got to figure out the schedule for next week because I will be working the fights next Wednesday. So we'll figure it out. Either we'll do a show on Thursday or something like that, and we'll set it up. But either way, I appreciate you being on the show today. I look forward to working with you some more in the future as well.
Most definitely, sir. Thank you very much. And we're gonna take over. This is some good stuff, man.
Definitely. Have a great night.
You too.